All right, so welcome to the panel discussion on the student internship, hosted by Learning Commons at Queens College, Girls Who Code, Code for All, NSF program at Queens College, and the Department of Computer Science. My name is Ming, and I will be your moderator for today's event. We're very excited to have you join us so we can dive into the engaged conversation of discussing panel tech internship from our student leaders, as STEM scholars, as well as computer science peer tutors right there. So I would like them, before we actually get started, I would like to remind everyone that the lunch is provided. So once you sign in, we'll have the lunch at the back of this room, and feel free to grab one as we proceed. I'd like to also remind you that we'll have an anonymous feedback form, as Donna mentioned. So before you go, make sure you fill out the form so we can get more funding and to host more events like this. So enough talking to me. Now I'll pass the mic to the panelists, let them introduce themselves.
Hi everyone, my name is Brian. I'm currently a senior here, and this will be my last semester here. Last summer I had the opportunity to work with AWS, more specifically for a small financial subgroup called FinSpace, which basically works off this distributed computing, from what I understand, to do like to crunch numbers and stuff like that. So yeah, I'll be happy to answer your questions.
Hello everyone, I'm Victor. I'm currently a senior here as well. I'm graduating this semester. I'm an NSF SM scholar. I'm currently a spring intern at, I don't know if everyone can see, but that company, Edison. So I'm a software engineer there. I'm also a spring intern at the Department of State doing software engineering as well. And last summer, I was a data science intern at AIG, which is a Fortune 100 insurance company, doing Python stuff, all the fun stuff.
Hello, my name is Justin. I'm a current junior, and I'm the president of Code for All. Currently, I'm a part-time software engineering intern at DNR Events, which is just like a small radio station. And this summer, I'm an incoming software engineer at Bloomberg. So if you have any other questions about that, I have a booklet from Bloomberg. If you guys want to take a look at that, like the different departments and stuff, just let me know after. And yeah.
Hi everyone, I am Samantha. I'm a senior here at Queens College. I'm also an NSF STEM scholar. I'm an incoming software engineer intern at Nintendo. I am also working at Beta NYC, which is like more data analytics kind of company right now. And yeah, I'll be happy to answer any of you guys' questions.
Hi, my name is Sigalita. I am currently a junior, but I'm graduating next semester. I am the secretary of Girls Who Code, and last summer I interned at Goldman Sachs, and I'm interning again this summer.
All right, so let's dive into the questions. We have a lot of questions from those who RSVP for the event. We collect the questions and we're trying to answer all of them. And after that, we're going to have an interactive Q&A section at the end where you can ask more questions, including those who are joining online as well as the audience in this room. So our first question is how to translate my current experience to make an attractive candidate for the companies providing those internships. Yes, how to translate my current experience to make me an attractive candidate for the companies providing these internships.
Sure. So I wouldn't say I'll give you the most technical advice. All of us here are from Queens College, and if you're in the CS department, CS major, I think all of you have realized there's not many resources here, as many universities, different universities provide. So here's the way I think about it. When you first introduce yourself, you'd say, hello, I'm from Queens College, and they might say, oh, from England, right? And you're like, no, from New York. And from there, you might talk about, well, I'm from I took the CS degree from there, and it wasn't the most resourceful thing. So that makes me someone who works. Well, that makes all of us people who work off little information, and people want that, right? Also, you work off a little bit. You don't need to be specified so many instructions to be able to accomplish a task. So that's my 2 cents of how you could approach this degree into someone asking you about like a job that you have that you want.
A way that you can use your current experience to make you a more attractive candidate is really knowing what you're talking about. Because when I was having my interview, they are going to ask about what's on your resume, and the more it sounds like you know what you're talking about, the better. Obviously, you're going to seem like a better candidate.
Yeah, and just to like branch off of what Sigalita said, it really depends on what your current experience is. Like, do you have experience in, developing your own personal projects? Do you have past internship experience? Are you like a tutor? You want to take these experiences and be able to portray to your interviewer what values you took away from that, what you learned, and be articulate in like describing, what you did at this internship, how you approached developing this project, what challenges you faced, because there will be questions that will come up and that you will be asked by your interviewer based on your experience. So.
And also, you should try to, kind of make your experience sound as technical as possible, but, also not lying about your experience. So a point where you actually still know what you're talking about. And even if you don't have experience, before applying to a job, if you have a company that you want to apply for, create projects that curate to that specific position, curate your resume to that specific position so that you're able to increase your chances of landing the position.
So I have the next question for you. How to land internships with no connections or referrals?
I landed my internship with no referral or connections. I didn't know anyone at Bloomberg. I just cold applied, but luckily I was able to get the Tech Talk invite. So just note that referrals and connections, they help, but they're not everything. Like, I applied to Google with a referral, and they haven't even responded to me yet. So, it's still possible. Just, make sure you have a good resume. And if you want those referrals, go to networking events, attend hackathons, things like that. And that'll definitely give you a leverage above other candidates.
Yeah, I think for this one especially, this one's pretty tough because if you have literally nobody, there ain't much we can do for you. It's mainly cold applying. Like, I've gotten most of my internships and interviews through cold applying. And at that point, it's mainly your resume, it's mainly how you talk. And the moment you get the interview is when you actually have to show up. You do your tech interview, you talk to them, you become a technologist in front of them in the interview, and you really show your value. Because I can't give you a magic pill that you just swallow and you go, I have an internship now. Or you have the position, or be in a position to be able to get one of these, because you're starting from ground zero. And the best way to, without anything, you just have to cold apply, and don't be afraid to just send your resume. At the end of the day, it's not you who decides if you're qualified, it's the hiring manager that decides if you're qualified. So if you see something you're interested in, just send in your resume. The worst thing that can happen is you get rejected. The best thing that can happen is you get it. Yeah, cold applying means you see like a job opening on LinkedIn or like any job posting. Sorry? Oh, okay. No, it's just a terminology.
There is a website for things like that. I think there's a GitHub repository that just posts like a bunch of applications which you can code apply to. Like if you don't have any referrals or anything. I know one friend, he code applied to, I think, 1,000 and something positions, but he finally landed something. He's getting like 85 an hour at Capital One. So, just note that even if you like do many code applies, it doesn't matter. You're still able to land something at some point. So.
All right, our next question is, how did you feel qualified enough to apply?
That earlier, you're not qualified. Most of the time, the person who decides you're qualified is the hiring manager. You're probably already qualified as long as it's not asking for a master's degree, right? Things like that, like if it's asking for a PhD, if it's asking for 10 years of experience, you're not qualified. But if it's like slightly within your range, you're not the person that decides it, just send in your resume. Like when I talk to my Google friends, they're like, I've hired people that weren't qualified, but I could see they're teachable, that they're able to be upskilled to that level they expect. So it's not, I wouldn't be afraid to just send it. And because when you're not qualified, you're probably close, but most of the time you'll be taught on the job. They're looking for skills. They're looking for your ability to learn. And as I said earlier, the hiring manager who decides if you're qualified. So just leave it up to them and just send it.
Yeah, just branching off of what he said, I think a lot of us shy away from applying to many different companies because we don't think that our resume is good enough, or that like we're not qualified enough. I know when I applied to Nintendo, they like preferred applicants who like had knowledge of continuous integration, continuous deployment cycle. I didn't know what that was. I had no experience in that, but I still applied, right? Because even if you don't fulfill all those requirements, I mean, that's like not knowing about CI/CD pipeline is different from like not having a PhD, right? If it's something very minor, you can still apply, still put yourself out there, because it's better than not doing anything and not submitting an application, because who knows, the hiring manager may see your resume and they may think, like Victor said, that you can be upskilled, you can learn these skills that the company requires for the position. So apply to as many positions as possible. Not to like master's or PhD, but like things within your ballpark, within your range. And yeah.
Yeah, I know for at least at Goldman, like orientation day, they drilled these 3 things into you, and one of them is they're expecting you to know nothing. Like genuinely, they want you to ask questions when you have the internship. And that's what the interviews are for. They're just to see if you are capable of learning. You don't actually use leak code skills in your actual interview. Like you're not asked to use a sliding window in your day-to-day. They want to see that you're capable of learning and that you have the ability to go in a team, stuff like that. That's what they're looking for in interviews.
Yeah, and also just note that for most internships, or actually for all internships, the point of it is to learn. Like you're gonna go in most likely without knowing anything. Like when I applied to Bloomberg, I didn't even look at like what the requirements. I just applied. Well, I don't even remember applying. I don't know how they got my resume, but they did. But I don't even know what I'm going to be doing at Bloomberg, but I still applied and I got the position. And I'm most likely not qualified, but I'm going to learn how to be qualified, and that's the point of an internship. Yeah.
Same.
Yeah, just to piggyback off everyone, you're never going to be qualified when you apply. Your value really truly shows during the experience. Are you really showing the company that you're someone who should they take in, or did they make a mistake, right? So at the end of the day, it's really you should not hesitate and apply.
So our next question is, how do you get into game development? I think that's a question for Samantha.
Hey. So this is very interesting. Nintendo doesn't really like look on like your project to see if you've like developed a game, and that's how you get an interview. I've never developed a game before. I was interested in Nintendo and I applied because I play Nintendo games. I have a Nintendo Switch. I play Animal Crossing, and I made that like clear to my interviewer that I loved Nintendo, and I showed her my Switch, and I was like, oh my god, I love to play. But show that you're passionate about it, right? I'm not particularly interested in game development, like developing games. If you guys don't know, Nintendo of America is much different from Nintendo is in Japan, right? That is where most of the game development occurs. Nintendo of America, their job is slightly different, right? It really depends on what team I get placed on, right? But I would say like it doesn't really depend on you developing games. If you want to apply to, I don't know, like Fortnite or like Roblox, same thing, right? They want to see that you have the skills necessary to really like develop software or communication skills. So yeah, I'm not crazy about game development. I love to game though.
I can actually answer this because I have a friend who's currently on a game development track at RIT. So how she kind of got into it, she did a co-op with Rockstar. Some of you guys know that. They made GTA, Bully, things like that. And the main tips that she gave me if you wanted to get into game development as a career is that you have 2 tracks that you can do. You can either get a computer science degree and do a bunch of like game development projects on your side, or you can go to college that has a game development degree and pursue that, and you'll make games like through your coursework and stuff. So that's your 2 tracks. But if you want like more like a freedom, I guess, where let's say game development doesn't work out for you, you still have the computer science degree where you can go into other fields like data science, software engineering, cybersecurity, anything like that, right? So I would recommend if you want game development, go computer science degree, work on games on your side, but like know what you're working on. Don't just like follow tutorials online. And yeah.
For this question?
Yeah, for the for Samantha, since you're in the congratulations, what are you guys using for Unity or Unreal? Are you guys doing C++ or C# like coding in one? Did the interview have any questions you can watch with like C++ or C#?
So the interview, what you can expect is like the standard interview process for technical interviews. There wasn't any like crazy like using Unity for game development and such. Even like they didn't specify a specific language that you had to use. So I used Python. I did all my lead code questions in Python. The interview process, I had an initial behavioral interview that was like an hour-ish. And then I got called in for like final rounds, which was 3 consecutive interviews with senior software engineers at Nintendo. And during each of those interviews, you basically get asked like 2 to 3 lead code questions. You solve it like on the spot, write the code, you walk through your code, provide some like test data. For that, make sure it works. An important thing is really talking through the process with your interviewer and like speaking out loud, thinking out loud, not speaking out, thinking out loud. Yeah, so there wasn't any specifics as to like what tech stack to use in that interview. It's just like the standard technical interview that you would expect. Nothing special. Yeah, so I'm most comfortable in doing lead code in Python, and I think it's faster, like write-in, so that's what I did.
And there's a question at the back.
How many projects do we need to have to apply to an internship?
How much?
Do we need any projects?
Big fat 0. In all honesty, I applied with no projects, and the interview was lead code and system design, which is rare. System design is very rare, but AIG for some reason gave me a system design, and I passed on that somehow. But I didn't apply with any projects. So in all honesty, it's actually, you can have projects, especially earlier in your career. Like as a college student, I would put projects. I don't even know what my resume looked like, I'll be honest. I don't know how I got through those rounds with my resume. I think it was complete bad word. But yeah, you don't need projects. It would be good to have projects, especially if you don't have internship or other experiences, but not necessary. They do, but I'm just saying from my experience, I didn't have them and I was able to get offers. But I'm saying they would check projects because as when you're interviewing, they like to talk about your projects. They like to be like, oh, what did you use for your to-do app? Did you use React? What backend did you use? Did you use cloud? Did you deploy it? And be able to talk into your technical terms on your projects. It's always good to have projects. I'm not saying projects are bad. I'm saying they're actually good. But I'm just saying from my experience, you don't necessarily need them. Yeah, definitely. That's what I was going to talk about too, is like any class projects, 211, 212, 355, if you took that. Like any of those projects, just make them sound cool. That's all I got to tell you. Make them sound cool, make them look like you did something.
So we have a few more questions that were prepared, and at the end, you can ask the panelists more questions. Sounds good? And next question is, what experience level of coding credentials should a junior applying for internships have in order to have a greater chance of acceptance for junior students?
So I'm a junior, and I would say that you should at least be proficient, or at least close to proficient, in at least one language. Like for me, example, I prefer Java, so I became proficient in Java. But that doesn't mean I know everything about Java. There's things like Spring Boot that I have to learn, like things like that. But at least proficient in one language that you can like do an interview in. That's like, I would say, like the minimum that you need. And yeah, if you want to go 2 or 3, I don't really see a purpose in that though, but yeah.
I think in terms of lead code problems, you're probably going to be seeing 2 mediums and maybe 1 easy if you're lucky on your interviews, if that's what the question's asking.
I would say you definitely need to know your data structures, and you need to know how to analyze your programs. If you don't do that, that's a big red flag for interviewers. Like, you've written this program, but you don't know asymptotically how it's supposed to work, right? That's, to me, that sounds like a really bad sign. So definitely, you don't even have to take 313, right? You can self-study on your own and probably get a better, deeper understanding than if you were to take 313 here. But definitely, you need to know data structures in order to, I guess, be comfortable to apply. My opinion.
All right. So the next question I have is, can I, as a freshman, get into a tech internship with no prior knowledge other than CS111?
So as a freshman, I don't think you can get like, a crazy, like FANG internship, don't set your expectations that high, unless you want to, unless you're like that. But I think CUNY offers a lot of great internship programs that you as like a freshman or sophomore can really, make use of. CUNY Spring Forward, which Justin did, Career Launch. There's also Service Corps, which I'm in right now. These are like really great opportunities and amazing starting points for freshmen. So take advantage of them because it will give you kind of like a foundational experience that you can use for like your other interviews at like Bloomberg or Nintendo, and you can talk about what you did. So yeah, take advantage. I think Service Corps application is currently open. It ends on May 15th. So definitely apply if you need any like advice on that. If you want to hear about my experience, because I'm currently in the program, yeah, you can go ahead and ask questions on that too. But as a freshman, take advantage of those opportunities. Yeah.
Yeah, and like Samantha said, you shouldn't like reach for the FANG internships your freshman year. You can though, because they have freshman and sophomore programs like STEP, or I think there's like a Discover program with Microsoft, I think. Oh, that's for Meta. Yeah, so they have I think it's called Microsoft Explorer or something, I don't remember. But they have a bunch of different programs for freshmen and sophomore that have like low-level experience. I think the requirement is that you have to have taken or currently taking a CS class, and then you'd be qualified for it. So you can apply to that, but that's very competitive. So if you want to go through some of the CUNY programs like Spring Forward, Career Launch, Service Corps. I did Spring Forward. It's literally a free internship. The way I did it, it was a 5-minute behavioral. They were just like, okay, why do you want to do this? And I was like, because I want to. And I got in. And it was a free internship. I got a software engineering internship out of it. They paid me as well. Fully hybrid. Well, not hybrid, fully virtual. And yeah, so take advantage of the things that the college offers to you as well. And I got that when I was a sophomore. But I just started CS 111, so yeah.
We have 2 more questions and we'll get into the FAQs. So the second to last question is, how can international students get tech internships? National students get into tech internships.
Again, Spring Forward and Career Launch, I think they sponsor it, which Mike, they sponsor, right? Yeah, Mike, he's international. You got into Career Launch, right? So yeah, they sponsor. You can get something through that, and then from there, use that experience to apply to like higher company positions. Because I know for most companies, they want to. I think like they don't like to say it, but they like to sway away from hiring international because it costs more money for them and things like that. So they're going to want to hire you more if you have experience. So use Spring Forward, use Career Launch, use Service Corps to gain that experience, and then apply to the bigger companies. But make sure before applying that they sponsor like international student stuff. Because if you apply, get all the way to offer, and then find out that they don't sponsor, then you're screwed. So.
There's usually always like a question when you're applying, like if you're international, if you will require sponsorship. So just make sure you take a look at that.
All right. Our last question is, how do I get started building resume and connections?
Well, we have the Career Center here on campus. They always have resume building workshops, I believe. You can always also ask your senior friends to take a look at your resume. Just constantly ask for other people's opinions. Hell, even ask ChatGPT, hey, how can I make this sound better? The more technical you sound, the better. Just make it sound like you did a lot of work, even if you did nothing. That's basically the way of writing a resume.
And for making connections, making a resume with connections, when I first started CS, I started it in sophomore year because I was delayed. So I didn't really know what I was doing. I didn't know like how to make a resume or anything like that. And I was pretty far behind. So I reached out to a friend. He had like a Harvard template that he used. So I used the Harvard template, and I was able to just create my resume that way, where I just inputted all my information, just deleted what was already there, and then just put all my stuff, and I applied that way, and that's how I was able to get into Spring Forward. So a good template for your resume is Harvard template. I know the Career Development Committee and the Student Union, they also have a template that you can use. I think it's landed like 50 jobs or something with that. And yeah.
I would say if anyone here knows about CodePath, I mean, they have a lot of resources there. And they also have career coaches there, so definitely diversify your outreach. Also, if you're in the CodePath, one of the programs, and you join the Slack, you have access to the Slack channels where people post opportunities, so you just get more views there. And sometimes they'll say, I'm looking for someone with expertise in XYZ, message me if you have this, and then you message them, and then that's also a way to get an opportunity, so keep that in mind.
As he walks in, I was about to talk about Sean, but you can talk about go to Sean or the student association. They'll help you with your resume. Louis here does a lot of hackathons, so you can talk to him about that. And yeah, they'll help you with your resume, and also vote for him. Give the plug, Sean. Oh, you're not allowed to do that? Okay.
It's against the rules. But if you want help getting internships and opportunities, stop by my office in Student Union 319. We sent a bunch of people to Accenture, Microsoft, Bloomberg, and a bunch of other companies. And yeah, just come by. You can ask Louis. Raise your hand. Stand up real quick.
And that is Student Union 319.
Yeah, Ming's in that text too. All right. Sean. See you guys. Thank you.
All right, so that's the last question that we have prepared. As we wrap up the panel discussion, we'd like to open the floor for all the questions from the audience, both in person and online, joining us from Zoom. So if you're joining from Zoom, you can write down the question in the text box, and we'll be getting that question. But let's start with the audience that's joining us here.
What can I put Spring Forward?
Where can you find this recording?
When can I apply to Spring Forward?
It opens sometime in the fall, I think in October. So Spring Forward is just opens October, and then I think it starts in February, ends in May. And yeah, you apply to it in next semester.
How many internships should I have by the end of college?
At least one. If you graduate without any, then cooked. It's Jover. But yeah, go for your master's if you want. But at least one. If you can't get at least one, either go for your master's or just delay your graduation to at least get like a winter or fall internship at least. Because if you graduate without any, then yeah, cooked.
Yeah, I think applying for new grad positions is very brutal. So definitely try to get an internship before you graduate in hopes of getting a return offer.
Yeah, I can talk to that a little bit. So last summer, I interned at AIG, just to show how annoying it can be to get a full-time. And then I'm coming back as a full-time data scientist, data engineer at AIG after I graduate, which was in a couple of months. And in the meantime, since I've been a senior, I've been doing full-time new grad interviews, and they're substantially harder than intern roles. I failed like 10, because I was at final round, I just failed 10 of them because they're just tough. Like Bloomberg failed me, Affirm, AT&T, eBay, like they all failed me because it's just tough when you're in full-time roles doing full-time interviews. And then AIG, they just gave it to me because I did well in the internship. I didn't have to do no offer. They just called me one day, like, you're coming back as an entry level. And I'm like, okay, cool. Do I have to do an interview? They're like, no, you just get it. And I'm like, cool. So I would say definitely try to get internships. It's just a preface, it's just tough. And at least one.
Yeah, just to attest to that, for full-time, just note, with internships, just note the questions are just gonna be like easy to medium lead code questions with behavioral. But for full-time interviews, it's gonna be behavioral, medium to hard lead code questions, and system design. So those are just another layer that you have to learn. So it's best if you try to get an internship beforehand and get a full-time return offer from that. It makes your life way easier, so. Yeah.
Is this Springboard internship enough to have like by the end of college?
It counts.
I mean, it's something. Like if you can like go on your resume and like kind of like over exaggerate what you did, then I would say it's enough. But yeah, that's what I would say. You have a question?
Okay, so in terms of technical projects, how do you go about figuring out what to make a project for? People mention that you need it all the time, which I get. How do you go about figuring out what way you make a project of? Like, how you go about making your goal, like how you want to like make it out of, I guess. What to make your project out of, I guess.
Do you mean like tech stack or?
Yeah. I mean, like, what I mean is like, with our project, well, how would you know what to make a project for, like, to impress employers that you want to show it to?
I'm gonna be honest. All right, if you go to Bloomberg and you show them a game development, they'll still be impressed, but they'll be more impressed if you have like a stock picker.
Okay.
Right? But that's only if you're targeting one specific type of company. If you target fintech, you build financial products.
Okay.
If you target gaming, like if you target game development, you build games. Right, because that's their niche, right? They care about that and they want to see tech in that. But if you're applying generally and you don't really care, I would say pick the project that you care most about. Like, it's going to take a while to come up with a good idea,
Okay.
but when you do come up with it, stick with it. Like, go deep. Like, I mean, build the front end, build the back end, build it locally, deploy it on the cloud, deploy on AWS, deploy on Azure, whatever. Just go deep into that product, into that project, because that's what they want to see. Because when you're talking to a technologist, especially a senior engineer, they're like, oh, he built in the cloud. He built with a database. He built complex business logic. He built with users in mind.
Gotcha.
Right? When you see that scale and when you see that thought put into your project, you want that person on your team because that's how they're going to act when you're on a new product and when you're developing for that team.
Okay.
I also want to preface that when I applied to Bloomberg, the projects I had 4 projects. They had nothing to do with Bloomberg. It was a Sudoku game, grade calculator, a Discord bot, and a climate change website, and that was it. They're really bad. Like, if you want to see them, they're on my LinkedIn, but they're pretty bad. But I was still able to get something. So you don't have to make something that aligns specifically with the company. But if you just want to find out how to make how to come up with ideas for like general projects, you can, again, you have ChatGPT, you can just prompt it to like give you some project ideas, but like prompt it with like what you're interested in so that you can get a project that you might actually be passionate about and might actually like want to work on and make something good. So.
To second what Justin said, I exclusively have games on my resume and I work at Goldman Sachs. As long as you know what you're talking about, that's what they really want to hear. But of course, having fintech-related projects on your fintech resume is obviously going to be a lot more helpful.
Oh yeah, I just had a question. So has anybody went down the hackathon route and got an internship through winning a hackathon in Code for All?
I mean, I did a hackathon, and so did Jorge and Thomas. They won their hackathon, but they didn't get an internship out of it. But they got a project out of it, and you can use those projects to apply to internships. So I mean, Thomas technically got an internship after the hackathon with the project on his resume, so I guess that. But it's not like he got that internship as an award for the hackathon. But not that I know of.
Because I know some hackathons you could actually get access, you could win an interview if you get first place as one of the prizes. It doesn't happen all the time though, but it is a prize sometimes.
Oh yeah, I know the Head Starter hackathon. It was like if you win, you get an internship or something. Yeah. There's that, but I would say those are probably more competitive. So.
For those who like have done your internship or are currently working, are there any grow areas that you've either identified through like self-reflection or through manager feedback? And like, what's your advice for us if we are like ever to like encounter those obstacles in our career? So like, if you've already did your internship or like have is like currently working, are there any grow areas that you have like found yourself in and have overcome, and what's like your advice on that?
I would say from my perspective, I've had 4 different managers. So they all do things differently. And it's hard because your manager is the person batting for you to get your internship. Like when I was at AIG, my manager had daily stand-ups for me. So every day, me and him would talk for like 15 minutes on what's going on. And then at the end of my internship there, through communicating with him what I was doing and like going with his task and helping him, he was like, next year when you come back, we got some cool stuff for you. So it's like, you have to talk to your manager like constantly, and it's hard. You have to be very open to your managers about like how you communicate, how they communicate, what they expect from you. Because at the end of the day, if you're in an internship, your entire purpose there and their purpose there is to make sure that you're a fit for the company and they want you back. Because they're spending 2 months on you and they don't want to interview another full-time person they have to take a gamble on. An internship is basically a 2-month long interview that you get paid for and learn stuff. So that's how I view it. And you want to talk, same way you approach an interview, you want to keep on talking. You want to make sure that your interviewer knows what you're thinking about, knows what you're doing throughout the whole process. And that's the same thing. It's just that in an internship, you have 8-hour days. So it's a bit different, but you still have to manage up, talk to your manager, because they're going to be the final call when they want you back or not.
I think a really important thing to work on when you're having your internship is learning to take the initiative, because managers, teams, they all love that. They love it when you go out of your way to ask a question. It shows that you're really interested in what you're learning and what you're doing. That's like the #1 thing. And to, of course, be a sponge. Everything everyone ever tells you, take it in, try to really understand why they're telling you this, because they're professionals in the field. They know what they're talking about, and it's only helpful for you to like really understand what they're talking about.
I have a question. How do I effectively study systems design? Besides, like, lead code is a super easy, you just hop in and just learn. How do I effectively study system design?
I think there's a book that you can buy, which if you're a junior, you should probably start buying that now if you don't have an internship lined up for the summer, because then you're gonna have to start applying for new grad stuff. So I think there's a book that you can buy on Amazon. You can start reading that. I think NeetCode has system design videos on there as well. I think if you buy his like premium subscription, he has like a whole like tutorial and all that stuff. But I haven't studied, Yeah, cracking the system design interview. You can use that. There's videos online, or you can join, I think there's a Discord server called CS Majors. It has like 10,000 people in it or something. You can ask them system design topics in there too, and they can help you out with that.
I have another question. Oh.
Yeah, main thing I would say, what I did was I just watched a bunch of system design interviews. Like some of them have them recorded as like practice, and just watch those, understand what they're looking for. Because for interviews, when I did my system design, they didn't give me no feedback at the end. They just failed me. So it's harder in an actual interview setting to do that, but like watch system design interviews, listen to their feedback. That's probably the most important part, is at the end of the video, they'll probably give you like what they did well and what they did bad on. And I would avoid the bad things, do the good things. And then I would also say, if you have friends or if you can find someone who's willing to do a system design mock interview with you, that would also be good.
I have another question. How much of the interview is focused towards system design?
For me, it was, so I had 2 technicals, so they're 2 hard lead code questions, but the last one was a system design, and it was like 45 minutes of just straight talking. It was just straight, like, the one they gave me was like, if you were to build YouTube, how would you build YouTube? And like talking about cloud, talking about videos, talking about security, talking about how you would embed things, blah, blah, blah. So it's like 45 to 50 minutes. If they want to go longer, they can.
So we can take one more question from the audience in person, and we have tons of questions from those who are joining on Zoom.
So I have a question. When you say you get an internship, how much time well, I guess personally, you guys, how did you prepare for it? Because the point, like you said, the point of an internship is to impress the employer, to make them allow you to get full-time. How did you prepare, or did you prepare?
I personally didn't, because school was kicking my butt, but yeah.
I feel like that's probably the scariest part for me, because I keep talking to people at like Bloomberg. They're like, oh yeah, you don't need to prepare, you'll be fine. But like, those are all people from like Columbia and like Cornell. I'm like, yeah, you don't need to prepare, but me, like, so like, I probably have to start preparing. I'm a part of a program called SEO, where they like have like career readiness stuff for me, where it has like Python and SQL training. So I'm gonna start doing that. I think it's only like 6 hours long. But it's just like basic stuff. So if you want like stuff to prepare before an internship, you can look up SEO, and they have that stuff available for you. But yeah.
So for the behavioral part of my interview, what I did was I created a spreadsheet, and I basically put like questions that are typically asked in behaviorals, like, you know, if you were faced with this obstacle, how did you overcome this? Your manager said something to you, what did you do? Right? There's very like some standardized questions that they ask in behaviorals. So yeah, I just put it in a spreadsheet. I write like some potential answers just so you can have an idea, because you don't want to be like asked these questions and then you just like watch your interviewer for like 5 minutes because you don't know what to say. Right? You want to have some sort of like idea of like what to say, what to answer to those questions. In terms of like technical interviews, I didn't know that I was going to be in the final round for Nintendo until like 3 days before the actual interview. So I had very little time to prepare. I basically just like grinded leak code for those 3 days. But you also want to be like consistently doing lead code. Like there's the daily lead code that you can do. You don't have to go crazy with it, right? But like practice when you can. Doing lead code is great interview prep. So yeah.
Before interviews, I would do mock-up interviews with my friends. During interviews, you want to constantly be talking, and during the actual interview, it's easy to forget that you're supposed to be talking. So practicing with a friend can be really helpful, just to sound out your ideas, get used to speaking. Also, up to the interview date, I would look up questions on LeetCode that are associated with the company that I got the offer from, and do those questions as well as the top 50 LeetCode questions listed. I think those are really helpful for practice.
Also the blind 75, I did those before my Nintendo interview, so, and they came.
Wait, sorry, are you going to be in an internship soon or no? Yeah. Congrats, first of all. I think to prepare for the internship itself, like coming into it, was that the question? Yeah. Oh, okay, I would ask your manager, like, if you have, whoever is managed, so go to your recruiter. So this is what I did. I went to my recruiter, I asked my manager, who would be managing me directly and giving me tasks, and I would talk to directly, ask them, like, is there anything I should know before going in to like the internship, like languages, systems, blah, blah, blah. Because you're going to go into the internship and this manager will be giving you your tasks. So talk to them about what you need during the job. If you don't have contacts with them now, ask whoever gave you the offer. Be like, can I talk to my manager? And then talk to them about what you need during the job.
So we have more than 20 questions that's waiting to be answered on Zoom, and we'll try to answer as many as possible. But the first question, yes. The first question is, can you show your Harvard template? And I'm assuming we'll send them to you. And the next one is, what are some of the best tools that you have used for your internship search?
Oh yeah, so if you want to see my Harvard template that I used, if you're in the Code for All server, you can go to the, I think, internship chat. I think I have my resume pinned there. And the tools that I used would probably have to be, I have like this GitHub repo that's like linked with Simplify, so it like auto applies for me. So when an internship gets posted, I go to click it and it like fills everything out for me with my resume. So that's a good resource. If you want to find that, you can go to the internship chat in the Code for All channel, and then the pinned the messages, the GitHub repo is there, so you can use that.
Anyone else? Does minoring in computer science look worse than majoring in computer science, and does it make a difference? Does minoring in computer science make a difference compared to being majoring in computer science?
I think with the minor, I don't think you can apply to like software engineering because I think you have to have a major, or in like something like you have to have a major in like computer engineering, computer science, something in a related field. You have to have a major. I don't think you can apply to like software engineering with like a math major or something. I think you have to have the major. I don't think you can have a minor.
All right, the next question is, as a lower senior, how many leak code problems should I prepare and what types of leak code questions? For a lower senior, how many?
I've answered 225.
I am a loner senior. I've answered like 130 something.
I think I've done like 84.
If that's including interviews itself, like 400. If it's not, it's like 250.
I have a very small number, but I could probably count them on my fingers. Like I don't really. I think you should definitely get comfortable with the techniques involved, because a lot of them is kind of different applications of the techniques, like sliding window and recursion, etc. So definitely learn the patterns and not the problems, so that you can apply the patterns to many problems, and then that way you don't have to smash your head on the keyboard.
And next question from Zoom is, how many internships do you think as a lower senior should apply to maximum my chance to get an internship? How many to apply to?
Just apply to all of them.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. Like for me, I've only applied to like 30 and I got 2 offers, but one of my friends, he applied to 1,000, I think it was like 1,175. So it doesn't matter, and you shouldn't be comparing your application count to other people. So yeah.
I applied to like 40, 50. It really doesn't matter, apply to as much as you can, especially if you don't have like prior experience, apply.
Yeah, and don't be scared to apply. Don't think you're unqualified for anything. I like to say this, like, it only takes one person to make the mistake of hiring you, so take your chance.
All right, the next question is, what are some basic skills should an entry-level intern have?
So one of the most important things I can advise you is learn how to test your code. If you can learn that right now, you'd be so far ahead than what other people are doing. And the reason for that is that when I see students come in for tutoring, they have a program, but they say, I don't know if it actually works, or how would I know, how does this code actually work? Well, if you write the test, you're able to think backwards and understand your program deeply. So definitely look into something called test-driven development. It's very valuable and something that I used during my experience. So if you can implement that right now, you'd be in good shape.
Yeah, definitely learn how to test your code, because I've tutored a lot of people who come in and they're like, they don't know why this works. And I'm just like, okay, did you test it? And they're like, no, I thought that's what we're gonna do here. I'm like, you got to start learning how to test your code, because they get a red error message and they're like, okay, book an appointment now, and then we fix it. So learn how to test your code, and before the internship, at least become intermediate to proficient in at least one language, preferably the language you're going to be working in. And even if it's not the language you're working in, the point of internship is to learn on the job. So you're going to be looking at documentation of that language on the job. And yeah.
I'd also say learn Git and GitHub. GitHub commands are very, very important in your internships.
I think learning object-oriented programming like fully is so valuable, because I don't know, I feel like we don't really learn it as well here, but knowing how classes work, how to use them in like an actual application is so valuable.
Our next question is, I would like to start as a front-end engineer. Can you tell me the steps and the skills I need to prepare to get an internship?
Figma.
I think for front end, I think if it's like specific, like if you're getting like a software engineering internship, but you're going into a front end field, the interview is like the same. But if you're applying to a position that is specifically front end, you're going to get a front end interview. So that could be like, okay, doing API calls with like React or something, or like making like a carousel in React, something like that. So you just have to know what you're applying for. So if it's front end, be prepared for a front end interview. If it's software engineering, be prepared for a software engineering interview. And then when you actually get into it, you can team match to a front end position and skip the front end interview.
So that's all the questions we have from Zoom. We can take one more question from the audience in person, and we'll have to wrap up. Two more.
So I just wanted to ask Victor and Sigalita about what. Okay, so you didn't have it yet, right? You're incoming. So okay. So since you had your data science internship, like what kind of skills did you learn coming out of it?
A lot of the times in an insurance industry, so I worked data science in insurance, and the biggest skill was like, don't leak information. Mainly is like, what I mean by that is you're going to be working in a database that is, so AIG is a worldwide insurance company. They're like one of the top. So they have data in America, they have data in Brazil, they have data in Japan. And the biggest skill that I learned is you have to talk to your teams, because you're not going to know where all the data is coming from. You're not even going to know the language the data is in. So you're going to have to communicate extremely well to understand what the data is doing, how to manipulate the data, how to transform the data. A lot of it was Python skills, but a lot of it was also emailing, getting on calls, because you're talking to data engineers and you're doing data science work to make machine learning models. Like at AIG, we were starting the development for AI co-pilots for our underwriters and actuaries. So I was helping them build out the data engineering pipeline to be able to have that co-pilot be able to understand all languages, right? Because we don't just work with English, we work with a bunch of different languages. So the biggest skill was being able to communicate, but also like Python, scikit-learn, pandas, like all that stuff. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, that answered. One more question. So I saw at National Science Foundation, did any of you end up doing research? What?
I Well, we're National Science Foundry.
I see the logo on the slide, which is why I'm curious.
Well, I don't do research. I worked for them, but to help with their investment side of things. So I worked with a program director to be like, where was our investments going? We didn't really do much research.
I have one question for about internships and all that. How did you go about balancing schoolwork, family life, and internships together? Because schoolwork is like a lot of stuff. You know, classes, you got to do projects and homework assignments and reading and all that. And so internships on top of that. It seems it's a lot to go into that too. So how do you guys go about balancing those two things?
Honestly, you have to find a balance that works for you. Like, for example, when I was applying to internships, I didn't find that balance, and that bit me in the butt. Like, for example, when I did my Microsoft final round, I was a pretty good candidate for it, and they wanted me. But that same week in my interview, I had 2 exams, and I just had a lot of stuff going on that week, so I wasn't able to really prepare efficiently, and from there I failed the interview. So you have to know how to like split up work, give time for everything. Don't just like apply and then when you get an interview, don't start studying when you get interviews. Start studying for interviews way beforehand, way before you're applying. And that's kind of what I did, but I did it a bit too late. So I finished my fall year and then I took the entirety of the winter break, December and January, just studying for interviews. So I did like 125 questions in 1 month. It was really bad. So find a balance or else you're going to get stuck, studying for an entire month, which you're not going to like. So.
Yeah, just on that as well. So I'm currently in 2 spring internships, school and blah, blah, blah. And doing also interviews at the same time. You're going to have to sacrifice something. I don't have the magic pill. I wish I did, but I had to sacrifice free time in exchange for doing my internships, I just sacrificed the least valuable thing in my life currently, which is like free time to do more passion things or just like lazing around or whatever, right? It's gonna be a sacrifice and it's gonna suck now, but it might pay off in the future. I have no idea.
So that concludes our event, and I would like to ask you, And I'd like to also express our appreciation to Learning Commons and Queens College for sponsoring this event, as well as Code for All, NSF STEM program, and Girls Who Code at Queens College and the Department of Computer Science here. So your participation really makes a difference. And please, before you leave, make sure you scan the QR code and complete the feedback so we can get to help improve future events and we can get the funding. Thank you very much.